Are you guys ready for some Christmas DIYs? Because today is July 1st, which means Christmas in July. So for today's video, I have compiled all of my favorite Christmas projects and put them all into one video so that you can enjoy 26 Christmas DIYs to get you inspired and get you Christmas crafting. If you guys are new to my channel, my name is Liz, and like I said, we are kicking off Christmas in July. These are all past projects that I've done on my channel, ones that I absolutely love, and I hope will give you lots of Christmas inspiration. And just as a little side note, any links that I mention will be in the original videos that I did for these DIYs, which I will have every DIY and its coordinating video linked in my description box so that you can find it easily. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first Christmas in July DIY. I picked up these two skeins of yarn from Hobby Lobby. They were a little bit on the pricier side. They were 30% off, so don't feel like you have to get these ones exactly. Any neutral yarn will do, but I loved the chunky knit look to it, so I picked these two up. And I also grabbed these two paper tree forms from Hobby Lobby as well. All of their Christmas stuff right now, at least at my store, was 60% off, which I thought was a really great deal. The taller tree was $12.99 and the smaller tree I believe was $7.99, and then both 60% off. And I decided that I wanted to do a bigger version of the little trees that I did in my Christmas tiered tray video. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it down below, but I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did with those trees. I'm just going to glue the yarn all the way around my tree forms. Now, what I will say you want to do is to start from the top and work your way down instead of working your way bottom to top. This is because the top looks a lot nicer when you start from the top versus starting from the bottom. So as you can see here, I'm wrapping my yarn around the top of the tree, but you get to that point, well, where are you going to glue the cut off pieces? Are they going to stick up? And you kind of have to deal with trying to glue everything down so it looks nice and neat. When you have this yarn, at least, the knitted pieces all start coming apart. So you kind of have to glue it together, and you glue it to the tip of the tree, and it just doesn't look as nice as it would have if you had started from the top. It still doesn't look bad by any means. I just think that it looks a lot cleaner when you start from the top. And I also wanted to show you how much yarn that this used. Not a ton at all. I'd say you still have about 3/4 of the yarn left when you're doing the smaller tree. Now for the bigger tree, I used the sage color, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to put some hot glue at the very tip of the tree, and I'll show you how I wrapped the yarn around it. So I'm just taking the end of the yarn and I hot glue it kind of facing down towards the bottom of the tree so I can wrap my yarn around the end of the yarn and cover up that end, and it just makes everything look a whole lot nicer and a whole lot cleaner than doing it the other way around. So all I'm going to do is continue this process all the way down, adding some hot glue, adding my yarn, adding my hot glue, and adding my yarn over and over and over until I get to the very end. Once I've reached the end, I'm going to add some hot glue to the very bottom of the tree on the underside, and I will attach my yarn right there, and that also hides the end of the yarn on the bottom. And that's all you have to do for this DIY. Super easy. You could add some little stars to the top if you wanted. I decided to keep mine plain, but I just think that these look so cute, especially with this yarn that I used. I just think it looks so adorable, and I can't wait to decorate my entryway table with these trees. celebrate Christmas in July, we came out with some Christmas in July DIY kits. These are so much fun to put together. They come to you unfinished and blank. You can paint them how you want them. You can assemble them and then use them for your Christmas in July decor, Christmas decor later this year. This one is one of my favorites, but we have shelf sitters, door signs, regular signs, and tier tray sets. You can go to moorevinyldecals.com to shop our Christmas DIY kits, and I'll also leave that linked down below. Again, so easy and so simple. All we're gonna do is take a star cutout from the Dollar Tree and we are going to use our Waverly wax in antique on it. I'm gonna do this on the front and the back so that when we add our twine, you won't be able to see the light wood underneath. It's going to match that twine a whole lot better. After the wax is dried, front and back, I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to stick it through the hole on the star, tie a knot, add some glue, and then I'm going to begin the process of wrapping this entire star with some twine. So there really is no rhyme or reason or skill to do this DIY. You're just going to wrap that twine around your star and you want the entire star to be completely covered. One thing that I would suggest as you're wrapping around the points of the star is adding some glue to the sides so that the twine isn't slipping down to the very point of the star. It will hold it in place a whole lot better and it will allow you to cover each tip of the star. But I'm just going to repeat this process, wrapping the twine around, adding a little bit of glue here and there, wrapping and wrapping and wrapping until it is all the way done. Once I've got the entire thing covered, I'm just going to tie the loose piece of twine to the back, and that is it for this DIY. I have a piece of scrap wood. It's 8.5 by 11.5 inches. I'm going to start by painting the entire thing with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I just did one good coat. Next, I'm going to take my Waverly Antique Wax and a chip brush that actually comes from the Dollar Tree. I always get questions about what chip brushes that I use. I use the one from the Dollar Tree in the automotive section. I think they work really great. And I'm just going to do a dry brushing technique where I dab my brush into the wax and then dab the majority off and then just brush very lightly along all of the edges, top and bottom, and all the sides, and then I very lightly go through the entire front of my sign. I also took some copper rub and buff that I also found from Hobby Lobby, and I took it on a little sponge, almost like a makeup applicator, and I'm going to buff this along all of the edges. I wanted this to look very worn. We're trying to make this look like old paper, so I did my best to make this look aged and worn out on all the corners. Next, we're going to wax our surface. This is the Couture surface wax. I always have links for this down in my description box. I get a lot of questions about the wax that I use, and I get it from Couture. So like I said, I always have a link down in my description box for that. And I do this to help prevent bleeding when I use my Couture transfers. So I grabbed this transfer. It's the Oh Holy Night transfer, and it has the music sheet on one side. That is the side I'm going to be using. I'm going to put it on my sign and try to center it as best as I can. And then I'm going to take my chalk paint in Velvet and I'm going to run this along the entire thing. Now, I am not the fastest chalker in the world, so what I like to do when I'm chalking bigger transfers like this is pull up the transfer as I'm chalking. So once I have a little bit done on one side, I'll start slowly peeling up the other side so that the chalk paste isn't drying to the transfer as I'm trying to get my project done. And I just do that process while I chalk the entire thing. And that is all we're going to do for this DIY. This is super, super easy and simple. And I think this turned out so fun. I love it sitting on a shelf with all my other Christmas decor. It's very neutral, very farmhouse. And I just love the look of it combined with all of my other Christmas decor. You are going to take a scrap piece of wood. This was, I believe, a 1x6 and probably about 20 inches long. I'm going to start by painting it with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I painted the back and all of the sides. You're not going to need to paint the front because you are going to be covering it up anyways. So just to make it finished, I painted the back and all of the sides with just one good coat. Now I'm going to take these wooden trees that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I took 3 of them and I'm just removing the little tags from the back, and I'm going to paint one of them with my Dixie Belle chalk paint in Barn Red, and I painted the front and all of the sides. No need to paint the back. And then for my next one, I'm painting this with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and for my third one, painting it with my Waverly chalk paint in moss. I did want to distress my trees, so I'm taking a chip brush that I got from the Dollar Tree, dipping it into some Waverly Wax and Antique, and then dabbing off the excess, and then doing back and forth strokes over my trees to give it that nice distressed look. I do that over all 3, and then I add a little bit of white paint to the brush, dabbing the majority of it off, and then going over the green and the red tree just to give it some more dimension, some more character, adding another color in there. And then for my white tree, to give it a little bit more dimension, I take some more of that Waverly chalk paint in moss and do the exact same thing, just adding a little bit of distressing over it. I'm going to take this Hello Christmas scrapbook paper collection kit that you can purchase off of my website, mooredecalanddecor.com. The link is always listed down below, but I'm going to take a piece of paper that comes from this kit, and it has a whole bunch of houses all over it, and I just think that it looks really fun. So I cut mine into 2 pieces so that I could have it covering the entire board. I also wanted to make sure the seam was in the middle so that my middle tree would mostly cover up that seam and then you wouldn't be able to see it as well. And I just used some Mod Podge to adhere my paper to my wood. And then the last step is just to hot glue your trees right on top of your sign. And I just did red, white, and then green. I think this turned out really cute. This is such an easy and simple project to do, and I think it would look adorable sitting on any kind of shelf. I took a scrap piece of wood. I cut it down to a little less than 7.5 inches by a little over 11 inches tall. And you're just going to cut some angles at the top, make it into the shape of a house. And then I have some 1 inch by 1 inch square wood pieces that we cut out with my laser machine. Although you could probably find these at really any kind of craft store. But if it is something that you're interested and you would like to see them on my website, let me know, because that's definitely something we could do. So I just started drawing out a grid to try to make sure that all of my squares were nice and evenly spaced out and all aligned perfectly, or as perfect as I could possibly get them. So I just did some measuring. There really wasn't any sort of like formula I went by. I just put my squares down, drew lines, and then tried to make sure that they all evenly matched up. And then I also used this ruler from the Dollar Tree to make sure everything was straight and aligned together as well. To glue all of my wood pieces down, I just used the super glue wood glue that you can find at the Dollar Tree. In total, I used 20 squares. And then I also have these half beads that you can purchase off of Amazon. They're linked in my Amazon store. And I'm just using some glue to attach these to the front of every square. So for this project, I was going for an apothecary style looking house with the drawer pulls. Obviously, there aren't drawers, but we're going to mimic what they look like. For the roof of the house, I just took some paint stir sticks. I did cut two of the ends at an angle where they would meet at the top of the house. You could just have them lay flat and not worry about the angle, but I decided to go the angle route, and I just glued those together and made sure that the roof was in the middle of the house. Once the glue is all dry, I'm going to go in with my Beryl Brown stain, and I'm going to give the entire thing a good coat of that front, back, sides, bottom. The entire thing will be covered in the stain. Once that is dry, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in white, and on a chip brush, we are going to dry brush the entire thing. Now, I started off light hand. I didn't want it to be too much too fast, so I just gradually built up the paint until I had it the way that I liked it. And you are just going to dip your brush in the paint, dab off the majority of it, and then go and dry brush your piece. So eventually you'll have it looking very rustic and very farmhouse, and I think this is so cute. This isn't necessarily a piece that you have to only have during Christmas time. I feel like this is a piece that you could have up all year if you wanted, but I just think that it looks so beautiful paired with my Christmas decor. I went to Home Depot and picked up 1x3 by 8 foot boards. I picked up 2 of these. Now I will have all the dimensions in the description box below and on the screen so that you guys can screenshot it if you want to try to recreate this project. I'm going to take all those pieces that I just cut, and I have them in 2 different groupings. Those 4 pieces at the top and then the 7 pieces on the bottom. I'm going to use a combination of some wood glue and some super glue wood glue to get these to hold together. I also would probably use some clamps that I didn't have at the moment to get these to stick together. I also took some big stir sticks on the back and then added some staples through the back, so that could also work if you want to try to get them to hold together a little bit quicker if you don't have the time to wait for the glue to set up to dry. So we are just going to glue those 4 pieces, like I said, that were on the top, just in that same pattern from biggest to smallest, and then you're going to glue your 7 pieces that are all the same size, all just in a row. Now for those 4 pieces, I had my husband do this for me. He cut it just by finding the middle and then going to each corner, so you're left with a little triangle. Now what could probably be a whole lot easier is just marking the triangle before you glue all the pieces together and cutting them down that way. But either way works as long as you are left with a triangle for your roof. You're also going to take some 1x2s and make a couple little roof pieces. I just left the ends square. You could also cut them at a 45-degree angle if you wanted, but I just left them in that square shape. And then you are also going to take some paint stir sticks to make a little barn door at the bottom, just cutting them at 45-degree angles. Again, all the measurements will be in the description box below. Now I'm going to take my 7 slats that we glued together, and I'm going to paint this with my Barn Red Dixie Belle chalk paint. If you ever hear me talk about Dixie Belle, they're always linked in my description box below. If you cannot find Waverly in your Walmarts, this is a really good alternative. I use this a lot, especially since I couldn't find Waverly for a long time, and I can find it now, but I still love Dixie Belle paint as well. So if you need an alternative, I will link it down below. You're also going to take your triangle roof piece, paint that with the Dixie Belle Barn Red, and then I mixed in some Waverly Antique wax while the paint was still wet, so it kind of blended together. And once it was dry, I also took the Waverly wax and went in between each slat to kind of define each of those pieces. And then once the paint on my barn itself was all dry, I'm also taking a small brush and going in between each slat with that Waverly wax and antique. Again, just to define each of these slats as well as to make it look a little bit more rustic and distressed. I'm going to take our two roof pieces. I'm also going to paint those with my Waverly Wax and Antique, and I'm just using this just like a stain. I'm going to paint it on and then wipe off the excess. And for our barn door pieces, I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm going to give all of those a good coat. I also took my Waverly Wax and Antique and just kind of distressed all the barn door pieces a little bit. I just went around the edges and I just wanted to give them a little bit more dimension so they weren't just that flat white look. Now I'm going to assemble my entire thing. So to attach my roof to the barn, I'm going to take a large paint stir stick and I'm going to add some super glue wood glue to it, as well as some wood glue hot glue to the back, and then I'm going to put that in between right where the roof and the barn meet, and I'm going to hold that down there. I also took my staple gun and added some staples to it as well to add some extra reinforcement. And then I'm going to put my roof pieces on there, again just some super glue wood glue and some wood glue hot glue, and I'm just going to add those pieces to my roof. And I just make sure that the roof pieces line up directly with the sides and the top of the roof. And then I'll add my barn door. I'm just taking all of my pieces and just laying them out before I glue them all together. So I just made sure to evenly space the two side pieces, and then I added my roof piece on top. And then you can add in all of your middle pieces. Again, I just laid them all out before I glued them down. And I just used a combination of that super glue wood glue and my wood glue hot glue. It's the Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks. If you've never tried it, definitely check it out. You can get them on Amazon. I'll have them linked below, but they are perfect for DIYs like this. Now I wanted to add a Christmas wreath to my barn. So what I'm going to do is take some picks that I had, and I believe I got the majority of these from Hobby Lobby last year during Christmas, and as well as this little wreath form. I also got this from Hobby Lobby. And I just took all those sprigs that I cut off and added some hot glue, and I'm just going to glue these around in the same direction on the wreath. And I just added as many sprigs until I felt like it was full enough. And then I also have these red berries. I think that these are really fun because they're kind of crystallized, and I just cut a couple of these off and then put them down into the wreath. I added a little tack onto the front of my barn so that I could change out the wreath for every season. And I just added this wreath on top of it, and that is it for this DIY. I think this is so much fun. It is a little bit more of a complicated one, but if you're comfortable using wood and using power tools, then this one is perfect for you. I think it's just so much fun, and you can use the barn all year round. Really easy DIY. You're gonna pick up a blank sign from Hobby Lobby. This was $14.99, but I did purchase it when it was on sale, so I think it was about 40% off. And I love that this is already stained and painted, and I don't have to do any kind of changes. So if you're looking for DIYs that are really simple and easy and aren't going to take a ton of time, going over to Hobby Lobby and buying some of their wooden signs, I think is a super great deal. So I am going to be putting vinyl on top of this, and I want to make sure that my vinyl is going to stick because, like I said, vinyl just has a hard time sticking down to wood, so I like adding some sort of sealant on top of it, and using a matte Mod Podge works great. So I just go through with a sponge brush and add my Mod Podge and wait for that to dry. And then I purchased a design on Etsy. I'll link that design down below, but sometimes for me personally, spending maybe $2 or $3 on a design versus me having to spend hours designing it myself is 100% worth it. And sometimes my creative brain, when coming to designing things, it just isn't there. So I found this one and I thought this was so cute. So I am just going through and weeding this out. It says Christmas market and a bunch of little Christmas words at the bottom. I just thought it was adorable. Like I said, I'll leave a link to the design down below so that you can grab it if you'd like. But I just weeded the entire thing out, and you do have to be a little bit careful with some of the smaller words and the smaller dots. You just want to make sure that those aren't coming up when you're weeding your design. And then again, I'm just going to take my Expressions vinyl transfer tape, lay that down, and then peel that up, and just take your time making sure that everything is coming up on your transfer tape that should be. And then I just laid this down and eyeballed it as best as I could. You could also use some wax paper to help get this a little bit more straightened out if you wanted. And then I'm just going to burnish it with my burnishing CRICUT tool, make sure that everything is nice and stuck down, and then remove my transfer tape. That's all you got to do for this DIY. Super easy. If you don't have a CRICUT, you could always purchase the design and then do the carbon transfer paper method and use a black paint pen to fill in your design. Sometimes you just need a super simple and easy DIY, and I think this one turned out gorgeous. We are going to grab one of those wooden 12-inch rounds that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I grabbed this Less Mess wood stain from Rust-Oleum. It has the sponge applicator and actually is pretty easy to use. Is it necessary? I don't know. And it's more expensive than just buying regular stain, but I had purchased it when I was doing my Walmart supplies only video. If you guys haven't watched that and you want to check it out, I'll leave it linked down below. But I just grabbed a whole bunch of stuff to do Walmart DIYs with. This was one of the things I grabbed, and it is pretty convenient, but it's probably just as easy to buy just regular stain. So I just stained the entire circle. Now I did do this DIY twice because the first time I made the white circle way too big. So I'm going to take this little wooden round that actually came from Walmart, and I'm going to use that as a template. And I'm going to take a white paint pen and trace around that circle. So you're kind of making a little bit more than half a circle on your sign. And then I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I'm just going to fill that circle in. We are making a little snowman head right here. Now you could absolutely just freehand this entire project. I am not so great when it comes to freehanding. My freehand skills are just not there. So I decided to break out my CRICUT and cut this out. Now, if you have a CRICUT, I will leave a link to this project in my description box so that you can click on it and just cut everything out. Now, I just cut out a carrot nose and some dots for his mouth, this saying, "Let it snow," and some snowflakes. So like I said, all of that will be on that link if you want to do this project. And I am just going to layer my carrot nose with the black and the orange and lay that down on top of my snowman. And then I'll take those little black dots that I also cut out for his mouth, and I'm just going to lay those down. And I just kind of do them like stickers, just remove off the backing and place them where I want them to be. I also made a little cutout for his arm, and I just laid that down. I didn't have any kind of different colored brown vinyl for this, so even though it matches a little bit with the background, I feel like you can still see it pretty well against the brown background. But if you have a lighter brown, or if you just use a different stain, probably would work better. And I just get my transfer tape from Expressions Vinyl. I'll leave that linked down below. It's just this clear transfer tape. It's my personal favorite when it comes to transfer tape. And another piece of advice when you are doing this project, before you lay any of your vinyl down, I would seal your piece with some sort of sealant. I like using just matte Mod Podge, and I should have done that before, but that will make putting your vinyl onto your sign so much easier, because vinyl is not a fan of sticking to wood, and stained wood at that. So I always have a little bit of trouble getting my vinyl to stick if I haven't applied a sealant, and in this one I did not. So just make sure that you're sealing it beforehand, and that will save you a whole lot of trouble from trying to get your vinyl to stick to your sign. Now I'm going to take some ticking fabric, and I'm just going to tie a super simple bow. I just took 2 loops and tied them together like you would your shoelaces. Now the back is going to be forward on the front, and I just kind of flipped everything around so all the right sides were showing, and I just tied that into a small bow and dovetailed the ends. I also took some pieces off of this pick, hot glued that down to the very top, and then added my bow on top of that, and that is it for this DIY. Really simple and easy, and I think this turned out adorable. I grabbed this scrap piece of wood that I had laying around in my garage. It's a 1x8 and then approximately 17.5 inches long. And I'm going to start by painting the entire thing in one good coat of my Waverly chalk paint in white. Once that is all nice and dry, I'm going to take this masking tape, this just came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use this to create a buffalo check pattern. So I'm going to start with a piece of tape. I'm going to tape that to the bottom of my wood, and then I'm going to take another piece of the tape and use it as a spacer. I'm just going to continue to lay my tape down using the spacer afterwards, and then lay the tape down, the spacer, and just back and forth until I get to the top. I took this Waverly chalk paint in silver lining, and I'm going to paint in between all of those pieces of tape. I took a sponge brush and did up and down dabbing motions, but I'm also going to use some paint brushes for this as well. So the biggest thing I could recommend is just doing up and down dabbing motions and not going side to side, whether you're using a sponge or you're using a paintbrush. You'll go ahead and remove that tape, wait for your paint to be all the way dry, and then you are going to do the exact same thing, just the opposite direction. So I'm going to take my tape, lay it down, take a spacer and lay that down, and then more tape, and just back and forth until the entire thing is covered. Now for my next color, I just used a bit of a darker gray. I just mixed some black and white paint together, and then afterwards I realized that I had a darker gray that could have worked perfectly. So just take a darker paint color, whether that be gray or whatever color of paint that you're using, just a bit of a darker color than the first one. Now I'm going to leave that tape there, and I'm going to take my third section of tape. I'm going to put this on top of where we put our first tape down originally. So you can kind of see where those white stripes are already on the board, and I'm just putting my tape back on top of there. So now you're going to take some black paint, and you are going to paint all of those squares that are no longer covered by the tape, and just paint all of those black. Once those are done, you are just going to remove the tape, from your entire piece. So all the vertical and all of the horizontal tape, you're just going to remove it all and you'll be left with a fun buffalo check pattern on your piece of wood. I think this is fun, you know, just with your regular black and white buffalo check, or you could do this with some other fun colors, and I just think it turns out so nice. Next, I grabbed this Merry Christmas sign from Hobby Lobby. It was $2.99 and then it was also 50% off, so I got it for about $1.50, and I thought that it was a really great deal, especially for the quality. So I just started out by staining it. This is with my Voodoo stain from Dixie Belle. I love their stains just because it's water-based and it's not stinky, so I can use it in my craft room without it, you know, stinking up the place. So I just did that first and kind of painted it on with a paintbrush and then wiped off all the excess with the paper towel. Now I grabbed this crackle medium from Folk Art. I've done this in the past before on one of my other projects where I lay my crackle medium down on top of the stain and then paint over it, and then the paint turned out all crackly and fun. This didn't turn out for some reason. I'm not sure why or what I did wrong, but I painted on there and then added my paint on top of it, and I did use a chalk paint and it didn't crackle. I'm not sure why. This is the Dixie Belle chalk paint in Barn Red, and yeah, it didn't work. So not sure what happened, but I still think it turned out cute anyways. I haven't used crackle mediums enough to know why it didn't work. This was just the second time that I've used it, but anyways, I decided since it didn't work that I was just going to go ahead and distress it on my own. So I just took some sandpaper and just ran it over the entire thing. I wanted it to have a very distressed look to it. So I just took that sandpaper and ran it along all the edges as much as I could and just tried to rough it up a bit. After that, I'm just going to use my wood super glue that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I just put it all over the back of my words and then centered it as best as I could on my sign. Lastly, I took some twine and I wrapped it around each side 2 times, tying it in a double knot in the back. And that is all you got to do for this DIY. I think this one is so much fun and super affordable considering the words were only $1.50. The wood, I don't know, maybe $1 or $2 in wood. And then obviously your paint and everything like that. So probably under $5 for this whole project. And I think it turned out adorable. All I'm going to do is take one of these chalkboard signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to stain it again in that easy stain from Walmart. I cut out this saying using my CRICUT, and again, I'll have this project linked down below so that if you have a CRICUT, you can go to it. But I just cut this out on some white vinyl. Using my Expressions Vinyl Clear transfer tape, I am going to put that on there and then transfer it onto my sign. And that's all you got to do for this one. Sometimes I think the simple, the better. You have, you know, your really cutesy decor and you need some kind of simpler pieces to go along with it. So that is all you got to do for this DIY. Really quick, really easy, and I love this one. I picked up a couple of these paper mache trees that you can get from Hobby Lobby and some fabric. The trees were $6.99 on sale, 50% off. And then, like I said, the fabric, it also came from Hobby Lobby. I am going to make some gnomes out of these. I thought these turned out so cute, and I love gnomes. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I am a sucker for some cute gnomes. So the first thing I did was take my fabric that I got and I wrapped it around the top of the tree form just to see how much fabric I needed. And I'm going to take this fur material that also came from Hobby Lobby. They have a whole bunch of different kinds of faux fur that you can get from there. And I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going from the back and just kind of picking through that material. I don't want to cut any of the fur, so I wouldn't recommend doing this with scissors, but just taking your X-Acto knife and going up through there just makes it so that the backing is cut and the fur is not. Next, I'll take my hot glue and I'm going to hot glue this just high enough so that the bottom of the fur is touching the bottom of the cone so that you don't see the bottom of that cone very well. And then I just hot glue the rest of it around the tree form. And then I'm going to take that fabric. I didn't want the raw end to show, so I decided to hot glue that down so that it looked like a finished edge from where the fabric meets the fur. Next, I just started hot gluing my fabric around the tree form. Now, you want to make sure that you're hot gluing your fabric over top of the fur so that the top of the fur doesn't show. And then one piece of advice is to not add hot glue to the fabric where you're going to add your nose later. I ended up accidentally doing that and had to pry the glue up from the tree form so that I could fit his nose underneath the top of the fabric. So just keep that in mind as well. Now, I didn't want my hat to be just completely, flat against the tree form. I wanted it to have some texture. I wanted it to almost look like it was oversized. So I just hot glued the fabric together in the back, but didn't add any more glue anywhere else so that there were a bunch of folds throughout the hat. And then I gathered up the top of the hat and added some twine around the top and wrapped that around several times, tying it in a double knot just so that it had, more of a finished look in the front. And then I'm just going to take these flat half beads that you can get from Hobby Lobby, and I just glued that right underneath the top of his nose. And that is it for this guy. And then for my second gnome, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I have some more beard material that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. I am just going to hot glue that around the cone. And then I picked up this really fun, kind of soft, fuzzy fabric from Hobby Lobby. I thought this one was fun and looked very, kind of wintry. So I'm going to wrap that around. And this time I made sure not to add any hot glue to the front of the hat so that I could lift it up and have my bead go under there. So I hot glued it on the sides and then hot glued it in the back. And I just kind of folded my material over, added some hot glue, folded my material over again. So again, I'm going for a very messy, loungy kind of look to this. And then I wanted to incorporate some twine. So I tied some twine around the bottom part and the back. And then I twisted it around his hat, going different ways to the top and then crossing it all over, going down. So I just think that it gave it a really fun kind of wintry look to it. And then I just tied it in the back and tied it in a double knot where I tied it in a double knot before, and then added his nose, added some hot glue to the top of his nose and folded that fabric down on top. And that's it for my two gnomes. I think they turned out so cute. You could also paint the paper mache in the back if you wanted to. I didn't think it was too big of a deal, but I think these are so much fun and so cute. And they also had different sizes of these tree forms. So if you wanted different size gnomes, you could get bigger ones and smaller ones. I just think these turned out so cute. I picked up this Let's Eat cutting board from Walmart. I actually got this on sale for $2.50. It's originally $5, but only $2.50, and I'm going to stain it in this Rust-Oleum Beryl Brown. I just stained the entire thing. You don't necessarily have to do that because I am going to be painting some of it. I just decided to stain the whole thing because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it when I was doing this. But just stain your entire piece and then let it dry for a little while before adding your paint. Once it is all dry, I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in Moss. I'm going to take some painter's tape and add that to my cutting board. I made it so that the stained part was smaller than the painted part. So you're just going to place your painter's tape wherever you want, your paint to stain ratio. However you want to do it is perfect. I just gave that one good coat, and then I'm going to distress the edges just by taking some sandpaper and going along all the edges so that original kind of lighter wood color is peeking through. Now I'm going to add some surface wax to the painted portion because I am going to be using a Couture transfer. So I'm going to take it on just a cloth and add my wax to it. This is going to help with bleeding whenever I'm using Couture transfers or transfers that are similar to Couture ones, the adhesive stencils. I'm going to wax it, and like I said, I just find that it helps with bleeding so that I don't have any issues when I'm using my transfer. I'm going to take this one right here. It says Merry Christmas and has little trees. This is back in stock on Couture's website. They just launched a whole bunch of new stuff and brought back some of their other transfers. So if you're looking for some new autumn and Halloween and Christmas and just everyday transfers, they just launched a whole bunch of them. I'll leave Couture linked down below so you guys can check them out. I may have gone on a little bit of a shopping spree yesterday when they launched. So I'm excited to get that order. But like I said, if you want to check out their new stuff, I will leave it linked down below. And I'll also have the name of this one down below so that if you want to find this one, you can. So I just took that transfer, fuzzed it because it was a little bit too sticky. I'm going to add that to the bottom portion of my cutting board, and I just make sure it's all nice and stuck down. I'm going to use my bright white chalk paste on a squeegee, and I'm just going to squeegee this on top of my transfer, just making sure that I'm getting everything nice and covered and then scraping off all of the excess because you don't want too much on there. And really, it doesn't take a whole lot of this paste to get this covered up. So I just make sure I scrape off any excess and then I pull that up to reveal this beautiful image. Just make sure that you wash your transfer afterwards and you can use it lots of times after that. I'm going to take some twine and wrap it around the handle of my cutting board several times, and I just glue the ends to the back. And then I'm going to take this greenery that I had. I just took a couple pieces off the pick that I had. I put the ends underneath the twine to hold it in place, and then I'm going to tie a bow using this trim that I got from Walmart. I'm just going to glue this right to the top of those greenery pieces, and this DIY is done. You are going to cut out 5 pieces of wood. One is going to be a base that's a little over 11 inches long. You are going to cut out triangles, all sorts of different shapes and sizes, whatever your heart desires, however big that you want them to be. I'm going to start painting them. So for one of the trees, I'm going to paint it with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and you're going to paint the front, the back, the sides. You don't need to paint the bottom because that's going to be covered up anyways, or you're going to be gluing it down to your base, so you don't really need to do that. For another tree, I used my Dixie Belle Vintage Duck Egg, and I wanted this to look multi-dimensional, so I had that paint on there while that paint was still wet. I went in with my Waverly chalk paint in Celery, and I brushed those together. I also went in with my Elephant colored chalk paint from Waverly, and I mixed those together, so I really wanted it to have a streaky look to it. And then for one of my other trees, I painted it with my Waverly chalk paint in Elephant, and then did kind of that same technique as before, just with white chalk paint. And then for my other tree, I painted with my Waverly chalk paint in Celery. and then again went over it with a little bit of that gray and white and just kind of blended those all together. For the base, I'm going to use my Waverly Wax in Antique, and I just use this like a stain. I'm going to apply it and then remove the excess with a paper towel. I did distress all of my trees using my Waverly Wax in Antique as well, just on a chip brush and lightly going over it with a dry brushing technique over the entire front, the sides, the back, the entire thing. And then I am going to be doing a little bit of Chalk Couture on all of my trees. So I'm going to take my surface wax that I purchased from Chalk Couture, and on a paper towel, I'm just going to rub that wax on there. This is going to help prevent bleeding. Since we are using wood, it's a porous surface, and I personally find that the wax helps me a ton when it comes to bleeding and my projects. So I'm going to start out by taking this pattern Chalk Couture transfer right here. I'm going to use the one with the leaves and the holly and the berries, but I'm just going to do the entire thing in this sage color, I believe that it's called. I will have it listed down in the description box below, so if you're looking for this specific color, you can find it, but I believe that it's called sage. And I'm just going to take my squeegee and put the chalk paste over the entire transfer. Once I've got it completely covered, I'm going to lift that up and then lay it back down to finish the top portion of the tree. And then I will cover that with some more chalk paste and lift that up, set it to the side to dry. For another one of my trees, I'm going to use this Oh Holy Night transfer. It's the music sheet, and I think this is so much fun. I love the music sheet look. I think it's really adorable, and I'm just going to put it on one of my small trees. I just put the other trees on the side so that it would hold the transfer up and I wouldn't have it moving around anywhere. So I just use my white chalk paste to go over the music sheet onto my green tree. And then I am going to use this pack of transfers that has a whole bunch of different Christmas words: blessed, rejoice, comfort, there's peace, Noel, all those fun Christmassy words. And I put that on my gray tree with the word joy and my black chalk paste. And then for this gray tree as well, I wanted to do some polka dots. So I'm just taking some white chalk paint, the back of my paintbrush, and I'm just adding polka dots all over the entire tree. Now for my last tree, I'm going to have this one in the front, so I wanted it to be, a little more detailed than the rest of the trees, or, a little bit different than the rest of them. So I'm going to take some of this ribbon that I had. I'm going to wrap this around my tree just by hot gluing it in the back. And then I'm going to take the word peace from that Chalk Couture pack. I'm going to use my velvet chalk paste on top of it. And then I'll just remove that to reveal the word peace. I'm going to take some of this greenery that I got, I believe, from Hobby Lobby. I just cut a couple pieces off, hot gluing it down on top of the ribbon. I'm going to take some twine, tie it into a super simple shoelace bow. My favorite. If you've been watching my channel for a while, I'm a pro at these by now because it's the kind of bows that I know how to make really well. I just stick that right down on top of the greenery. And then I have these little snowflakes that came from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use the furniture pens that they have. They're almost like a stain in a pen from the Dollar Tree. They worked really well for this project, and I just painted 2 of those snowflakes in that, and then I am going to glue them on top of the tree, one in the bottom corner, one on the top side, and I think that looks really cute together. And then I'm just going to go ahead and assemble all of my trees on top of my base. I just use that super glue wood glue that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I just glue all those down, and that's it for this DIY. I think this turned out so cute. I think this would be adorable with a ton of trees if you did like 10 or so of these triangles and made like a big tree, forest. I think it would look really cute together, but I'm loving this DIY and how it turned out. For this DIY, you can get these wooden fence posts from your local hardware store. I picked these up at Home Depot. They were less than $4 a piece and they were 6 feet tall. I cut mine down maybe by 12 inches or so. All I'm going to do is cross them like you would skis. And I had my husband drill in some screws for me because he's my handy man. And, you know, he's there. Why not let him help just a little bit? And he just screwed in 2 screws for me right in the middle where they overlap, and that's going to keep them in place. I am going to make a little wreath to go on top of it. I didn't paint it. You could. I decided to leave mine the plain wood color, but if you want to paint and stain yours, you can definitely do that. I am going to take a wreath form from the Dollar Tree, some 12-foot garland that also comes from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to wrap this around the wreath over and over and over again till it's nice and full, and you can hot glue the ends to keep everything nice and secure in place. Next, I'm going to take this pick and I just cut this all apart. I cut all the branches off and I'm going to start sticking them inside my wreath, and since it is a foam wreath, I just pushed the ends into the foam. I didn't worry about hot glue, didn't worry about wires. Everything stayed nice and intact just by stabbing the ends into the foam. And I'm going to put this all in the same direction, going the same way all the way around the wreath. And then I also had these frosted berries that came from the Dollar Tree. I kept these in sets of 2 and I just stuck the wires down into the foam. You could hot glue it for a little bit more security, but I felt like these were pretty nice and snug inside of there, so I didn't worry about that. I have some of this ribbon that I purchased from Hobby Lobby. I just took a piece and hot glued the ends together, wrapped it around the wreath, and then I am going to make a bow. Now, I'm not the greatest bow maker by any means. I really need to invest in one of those bow makers, you know, that you can buy off Amazon, the wood with the wood posts. I really need to get myself one of those because I'm not good at doing this by hand. So I ended up cutting 3 loops, hot gluing them together, and then kind of tying all 3 of them together. It works in the end, and I think it looks great, but there is definitely some room for improvement. So I am going to do that. I'm going to invest in one, but you make your bow or go to the store and buy a pre-made bow. You know, whatever floats your boat, whatever you want to do. But I just made the bow. I took an excess piece of ribbon and hot glued it around the middle so that you wouldn't see the twine that I used to tie all 3 of the loops with. And then I cut myself out some tails. I hot glued that to the back, and then I hot glued the bow to the ribbon on the wreath. And then I hung the wreath in the middle of our now skis. And this makes such a cute porch leaner for Christmas, for winter. You can leave it up all season long. And I just think that this is so adorable next to my door. I grabbed the longer, skinnier wall shelf out of all the options that they have, and I cut the sides down so that the sides do not have the holes in them anymore. So you're just going to go ahead and cut those off. I'm going to start by painting that piece with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I just gave the front and the sides one good coat. You can paint the back to make it more finished. I didn't, just for time's sake for today's video. I'm going to set that to the side to dry, and then I found these Merry Christmas letters at Hobby Lobby, and they were $2.99 on sale for 60% off, so I thought this was a really great deal. And I'm going to start by staining these with my Waverly Wax and Antique. I'm just going to use this like you would a regular stain, putting the wax on and then wiping the excess off. Next, I found these wooden Christmas lights in the Target dollar spot. They were $3 for a pack of 4, and I picked up 2 of them. I'm going to take 4 of them and paint them with my Waverly chalk paint in moss. And then for the other 4, I'm going to use my Dixie Belle Barn Red. Once the paint is all dry, I'm going to take some gold rub and buff on a small detailed paintbrush, and I'm going to go along the cap of all of the light bulbs and paint the sides and the top of that light bulb with that rub and buff. I wanted the top of the lights to have that shiny metallic gold look to them, and I think the rub and buff does a fantastic job. You could also just use some gold paint if you wanted, but this is what I had on hand right next to me, and I think that it turned out really pretty. With that pack of letters from Hobby Lobby, it also came with a pack of eyelets, and I screwed 8 of these into the bottom of our sign, and I measured about 1 3/4 of an inch between each eyelet, and I just went through and screwed all of those in. Next, I'm going to take some twine, and I tried to measure all my twine about the same length. I'm going to string that through the little eyelets at the top of my light bulbs, and I'm just going to tie a knot around each light bulb at the bottom. Now, I've set out all of my letters to spell out Merry Christmas on my sign, and I tried my best to space them out as evenly as I possibly could. I'm just using my super glue wood glue that comes from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue all of my letters down. Now, once those letters are all nice and dry and stuck down there, I'm going to start stringing on my light bulbs. Now, originally, I was going to try to have these all match up as best as I could in length so that they were just all nice and straight across. That didn't quite happen, so what I ended up doing was having the green light bulbs a little bit shorter in length than the red ones, so all the green ones were just a tad bit shorter, and I love the look that it gave to them. So all I'm going to do is just string these through the eyelets, tie a knot, and then I will trim off the excess twine that is on the top of all of these. Lastly, I'm going to screw in 2 more eyelets on the top of the sign so that I can string some twine from it and use it as a door hanger. You could, hang this on the wall, hang it on a door. You could even hang this between a wreath. But this is it for this DIY. It's one of my favorites. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'm going to take 2 more of these long, skinnier wall shelves. I'm going to start by removing the twine that is knotted through all 4 holes, and I'm going to use my wood glue super glue to attach both of these wall shelves together, making one larger piece. Next, I found this galvanized Noel sign that came from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove that hanger, and I'm going to take it to my garage and give it a couple coats of this satin heirloom white spray paint from Rust-Oleum. I'm going to take my Hello Christmas paper pack that you can purchase from my website, and I have this red snowflake pattern that I think is so pretty, and I just cut this down several times so that it would fit onto my sign. I'm just using a glue stick for this, by all means use some Mod Podge if you'd rather do that, but I found that the glue stick worked just fine and just as well as when I used the Mod Podge, and I just glued both of the pieces that I cut down right onto my sign, and then I trimmed off any excess with an X-Acto knife. Once the paint on the Noel sign was all dry, I took some super glue to the back, and I'm just going to center that as best as I can on the front. I'm going to take some ribbon that came from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to tie this into a really simple shoelace type bow just by taking 2 loops and tying those together, and I'm going to hot glue that to the top of the sign, covering up that hole in the Noel, and then I just glued my tails down so that they had a little lift to them, and that is it for this DIY. I think this turned out so cute. DIY, you are going to take 2 packs of the smaller wall shelves. Now these come with 2 in each pack, so you're going to have a total of 4 pieces. I'm going to start by assembling a little box. So again, I'm just using that wood glue super glue, adding some glue to the ends, and then forming a box. Once that is completely dry, I am going to start adding these half beads that I purchased from Amazon. You can find these in my Amazon store linked down below, but I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, and I'm going to use these half beads to cover up those holes. To give it a little bit more stability, I took some tumbling tower pieces that you get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to hot glue these into each corner. I want to make sure that my box isn't going to fall apart, so this just adds a little bit more strength to your box. I'm going to paint this with my Waverly chalk paint and plaster. Mine was a little bit too thick, so I did water some down, and I'm just going to paint the entire thing with one good coat of this color. Once that's dry, I'm going to take my gold rub and buff, and I just took that on a paper towel. I'm going to go over all of those beads that we put on, and I just buff that right on top of there. I'm also going to go along all the sides and the corners to give it a little bit more definition, and I wanted an extra little pop of color, so I just went through and kind of used it to distress my piece a little bit. But I love the way that it turned out, and I love how it looks with this tree that I purchased from Hobby Lobby sitting right in it. I think it looks absolutely adorable. You are going to take another pack of those smaller wall shelves. Now I took the 2 pieces that it comes with, and I decided to glue these together. I wanted this piece to be a little bit thicker, so I'm just going to glue those right on top of each other. Now we are going to take some more of these half beads that I have from Amazon, and I just add a little bit of glue and then add my half bead, and I'm going to go around all of the edges of our stand that we're making, and I will just continue this until all of the beads are covering the edges. I have these finial caps that come from Hobby Lobby. I am just putting some glue on the ends, and I'm going to be using these as feet for this riser, and I just glued one of these over each hole on the bottom. I'm going to paint this with my Waverly chalk paint in moss, and I'm just going to paint the entire thing. You want to make sure that you're getting in between all of the little cracks from the beads and making sure that everything is nice and covered. And then just with my finger, I'm taking some more of this gold rub and buff, and I am just buffing this onto the beads that we put on. I also put a little bit on the feet, and I just add a little bit more dimension to our piece, and I think it turned out really cute. I love having these risers for all of my decor because it gives a different height to other small pieces. Everything isn't just, you know, all sitting on one shelf and all the same height. You add a level of dimension to it and a different level to your pieces, which I think is really fun. You are going to take one of the small wall shelves and then two of the larger wall shelves, but you are going to cut them down so that they are all different sizes. You want a small, medium, and a large. For our small one, you are going to take some wood filler and fill in those holes. I'm going to paint each of my pieces with my Waverly wax in Antique, and I'm just going to brush that on, wipe it off like you would a regular stain, and I'm going to do that to all three of our pieces. I also picked up a couple candlesticks from Hobby Lobby. These smaller ones come in a pack of 4, I believe, and I am going to use my wood glue super glue, and I'm going to glue 2 of these together. While that is drying, I'm going to take a larger candlestick that also comes from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to give this one good coat of our Waverly wax in Antique. And then as soon as that is done, I'm also going to do the same thing to our other candlesticks that we glued together. Lastly, all you're going to do is assemble your tiered tray. That is what we are making for this. So I am going to be using a mixture of some clear Gorilla Glue and our super glue, and I'm just going to stack each board. I tried to make sure that the candlesticks were centered as best as I could and that everything was nice and lined up in the middle. Glue your candlesticks to each board, making 3 tiers, and that is it for this one. I think this turned out so cute. If you know me, you know that I love my tier trays and I love decorating them for every season. So if you're looking for an affordable option for a tier tray, I think this one is really fun. I'm going to take this Farm Fresh Christmas tree cardboard bag that came from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out the front of it. I want to be able to use this for a sign, so I just took my scissors, cut that out, and then to get some even and straight lines, I just took my X-Acto knife and went around all the sides to get those nice and straight. Next, I'm going to take these square dowels. They are 3/8 of an inch, and I just picked these up from Lowe's. I'm going to take several of those dowels, and I'm going to make a little frame to go around that sign. And I just measured out where they needed to be cut and took them out to my miter saw and cut those down. I'm going to use this easy stain again to stain all 4 of my frame pieces. And then I just took the original super glue wood glue that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I adhered all 4 of of my frame pieces together. I would say that it's easier to glue just your frame pieces around your sign without adding any glue to the middle portion at all, and then add some glue to the back would be the best way to get your piece to stick together. And that's it for this DIY. This was really easy, and I think this turned out so cute. I grabbed this little sled from Walmart. It was $5 and it was located in their little section towards the front, almost like the Bullseye's Playground of Target, but Walmart's version, that's where it was at. And I'm going to make this very simple. I just wanted to redo it. I know it's already a neutral color and you could leave it like that, but I wanted it this green color. This is Waverly's Chalk Paint and Moss, and I gave the entire thing 2 good coats of that paint. I wanted to make sure the black was covered up as well as the star on the front. Once the green paint is completely dry, I'm going to take my Waverly Wax and Antique on a chip brush. I'm going to heavily distress the bottom portion of the sled. And for the other parts of the sled, I'm going to go a little bit more light-handed, but I wanted this sled to look worn. I wanted it to look like it was wood and it'd been painted green, and then some of the green paint was chipping off. So I just was going for that very farmhouse rustic look to it. I dabbed my brush along the front in several different places just to try to make it look really worn. And then I had some of this rope-like ribbon that came from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to string that through the holes in the sled. I tied 2 double knots to each end, and with the rope pulled down to the front, I also tied that in a knot. I debated adding some wooden snowflakes to it, but I ended up just leaving it as is because I think it looks like a really fun piece paired with all of the other Christmas decor that I made. For this DIY, I grabbed these wooden skates that you can get as a pair from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by painting the entire thing black, minus the skates at the bottom, the star, and the little cuff of the boot at the top. Everything else is going to be painted black, and I just did 1 good coat on both of the boots. Once that's dry, I'm going to take a paintbrush and dab the back in some white Waverly chalk paint, and I'm just going to go over those engraved circles on the front where the laces would go, just to make those pop out more. And then I'm also going to paint the snowflake and the top of the boot in white as well. For the skate portion of them, I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in Silver Lining, and I just gave it 1 good coat. Next, I'm going to add some beads to some twine. I get my beads off of Amazon, which is linked in my Amazon store. And I'm going to string on about 7 of these. I'm going to add my twine through each of my skates. I also added a little bit of details to my skates. Of course, my camera was not filming when I did that, but I just added a little stitching around the cuffs of the skates at the top. But that's all you're going to do. Just add your skates to your twine and beads, and then you could hang this over a sign, have it lay out on a table. I think these are adorable. I grabbed these acrylic ornaments that come from Hobby Lobby. They are $4.99 on sale, 50% off, and I believe you got them in a pack of 8. And they have a clear little plastic on them that you can just remove. I grabbed 3 of these, and I am going to do just a really simple kind of ornament with them. I'm going to start by adding some paint to the back, and I don't know if you've seen those acrylic ornaments with kind of like the streaky paint on the back. That's what I was going for in this. So I'm going to do red on one, white on the other, and then green on the third. And I just did this very messily just to try to get that streaky paint look effect on the back. Next, I'm going to take this Couture transfer. These are the Christmas minis that I think look so adorable. And I took 3 of these and I am going to fuzz them really, really well to make sure that they're not going to stick too much to these acrylic ornaments. You don't want your transfers to stick so much that they end up stretching when you take them off. So for glass or acrylic or, hard surfaces like that, I like to make sure that I am fuzzing really, really well. And then I will add my transfers down on top of there. And I just add a transfer to all 3 of my ornaments. I'm going to go in with the chalk paste in black for all 3. And I just add the chalk paste on with my squeegee and then remove the transfer. And I do that for all 3 of my ornaments. Now that that is done, I have these beaded wreaths that came from Hobby Lobby. They were $3.99 on sale for $2. So I just removed the twine that came on the beaded wreaths and strung that through my acrylic ornaments, strung it around the beaded wreath again, tied a knot at the top, and that is all I'm going to do for this DIY. I think these look so cute and they would look adorable hanging on a tree. I don't have mine up quite yet, but as soon as I do, I'm going to throw these on there because I think these are so much fun, and it was so easy and simple to make. It took me, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. For this DIY, I have these Target dollar spot houses that I found in the fall time. They were $3 each, and I'm going to start by painting them, one with my Waverly chalk paint in moss, and my second house with my Dixie Belle chalk paint in barn red. Now I'm going to be using some paper from my Hello Christmas paper pack again, and I'm going to use these ones that have the little cards on them. I just took my paper cutter and I just cut out one of those little cards, and I'm going to add some Mod Podge to the back, make sure that the edges are all nice and coated, and then I just added this to the middle and bottom portion of this house. To finish it off, I'm going to take some lace ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. I just cut a portion of it off, and I'm going to tie a really simple and easy shoelace type bow, just taking 2 loops, tying it together, playing with the loops a little bit till I get it the size that I need it, and then I'm going to add some hot glue to the back and then hot glue it right to the top of that paper, and that is it for this one. I think it turned out really cute. For my second house, I'm going to add some surface wax from Couture onto it because I'm going to be using a Couture transfer. I'm going to take this transfer that has a whole bunch of different kind of card-like sayings on it for Christmas. There was this Merry Christmas one, and I just cut that out, fuzzed it, and added it to my barn. I'm going to use my bright white chalk paste, and with a squeegee, I just add that on there, and then remove the transfer, and I have a really cute Merry Christmas saying on my barn, and these two paired together, I think, look so adorable on my shelf. This is so simple and so easy. So if you're looking for something super quick, this one is perfect. I'm going to take a scrap piece of wood that I had in my garage, paint the entire thing white. I'm going to use some surface wax from Couture on the front. Anytime I'm using a porous surface like wood, I like to add the wax on there. It just helps with bleeding when I use my Couture transfers. I'm going to take this Santa letter transfer that I just think is super adorable, and I am going to cut this all apart. I add my two Santa, the North Pole, on the front, and I'm going to use my black chalk paste for these words. I just add it on there with my squeegee and then remove my transfer when it's done. And then I'm going to add the little stripes to the side, and I use this red chalk paste. I can't remember the exact name of it off the top of my head right now, but I'll have it listed below so that you can find it if you're looking for this specific red color. And I just add that on there, remove the transfer, and then I have a little stamp that's going to go in the top right hand side. And again, I'm just using that red chalk paste and then removing the transfer, and then you're done. You have this really cute letter to Santa that you can put on an entryway table, on a shelf. I just think it looks super adorable. You can even go as far as adding names in the top left hand corner if you wanted, for a little from section, and I just think that this looks absolutely adorable. Sometimes you just need DIYs that are so simple and so easy and take hardly any time at all, especially with busy schedules and especially with the busy holiday season coming up. I definitely gravitate to super easy and super simple DIYs. I have a 16-inch wooden round. This was actually cut out from our laser machine, but you can find big rounds like this at Lowe's, Home Depot. You might even be able to find some at Hobby Lobby. So I'm going to start by painting this with my Waverly chalk paint in white, and I just gave the front one good coat. Next, I am going to be using a Couture transfer with this, so I'm going to take my Couture surface wax, and I just applied this to the bottom half of my sign because I'm only going to be doing this on the bottom half. On the top half, I'm going to be using this Dixie Belle rub on transfer, and I found these ones. I think that they were new this year. I've never seen them before, but they had a bunch of fun Christmas foliage. It's called the Evergreen and Holly, and I thought that these were just beautiful. So I found this one kind of like a half wreath with these two pink roses. I thought it was gorgeous. So I tried to just center it as best as I could at the top of my sign. I did end up having one of the leaves kind of cut off a little bit, but that wasn't too big of a deal to me. And it comes with this giant stick that you are just going to rub and rub and rub. These are like the Dollar Tree rub-on transfers, but on steroids. I mean, they are so detailed and so beautiful. I just love them so much. So you're just going to rub. I just kind of pull up as I go. So as I'm rubbing, I'm pulling up that carrier sheet, and if anything comes up that's supposed to be stuck down, I just lay it back down and rub over it some more. And you're going to do that until the entire thing is stuck to your sign. Next, I'm using this Couture transfer that says "This Home Believes." I'm just using the words for this one, and I'm going to use my fuzzing cloth to fuzz my transfer so it doesn't stick too much to my sign. And then I'm going to lay this down with the Believes centered on the sign. I'm going to use my chalk paste in black, and I'm going to go over the word Believes. I'm just going to use my squeegee to get that on there, make sure that it's all nice and covered, and then I'll pull that up. I wait for the word Believes to dry, and then I'm going to lay my transfer back down. I did put the carrier sheet behind the word Believes so that I didn't have any black going onto my sign that I didn't want there, and I just tried to center the "This Home" and then added my black chalk paste on top of it and removed it, and that is it for this one. I think that this turned out so pretty. I think this would be gorgeous in the middle of a large wreath on your front door, but I think with the flowers and the words, I think this one turned out so beautiful. And that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed this mega video of Christmas in July crafts. Like I said, these are all some of my favorite DIYs for Christmas. Get ready for some brand new DIYs coming this month. I'm so excited to Christmas craft this month and get Christmas inspiration going. It's always one of my most favorite months because who doesn't like crafting for Christmas? If you guys haven't subscribed yet, I hope that you will stick around, hit that subscribe button, become a part of our little crafty family here on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button again if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye!